Hello, my friends, and thank you again for tuning in for another episode of Weird Mythic Podcast. It's me, Naomi. As always, I am your host, and I want to say thank you again for just joining me on the show and going through these fairy episodes with me. I've had a lot of fun doing research on the Fae world. I hope everybody has had a good week. I know I have had a really good week. Nothing really to complain about on my end, but I usually don't complain much anyways. I wanted to kind of share something with you guys. Something strange happened over last weekend. So I'm not that person to be like, oh my God, I had the craziest dream last night, and then go into all these details about my dream, right? Nah, I don't do that. And I smoke a lot of weed, so I don't dream much. I just pass out. But I remembered this dream that I had. And anyway, so I had this dream a few nights ago. And I was at the house I grew up in, and it was the duplexes. But I was an adult, and my brother was there, and family members were there, and we were all like, adults. But I had to try to get all the chickens into my dad's house, or into the chicken coop at least, before it got dark. And we were all freaking out, being like, gotta get the chickens into the coop. We gotta get the chickens inside, because if we don't, that creature is gonna come by and eat them. And in my head, I'm like, we gotta hurry up and save the chickens. Don't want the creature to eat the chickens. And you know what? We gotta hurry up and get inside once it gets dark also, because we don't want to get hurt by whatever creature was in this dream I was having. Anyways, I did see the creature in my dream, and it looked a little odd. I don't really know how to describe it. It was just a creature. But, wake up the next morning not thinking much of it, because, you always forget your dreams within the first few minutes of waking up. But I look at my phone because I got like, ding, I got a Facebook message, and it was from my cousin Iris, who I've actually never met Iris. She is my dad's cousin, so I guess I mean like she's my second cousin. Anyways, she's from Louisiana, New Orleans. Most of my dad's side, his mom's side of the family is from there. But she sent me an article of the Rougarou that morning. And in my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know about the Rougarou. And it was just cool just to read another article about it. And, I said, thanks for sending it over. And then in my head, I'm also like, the fuck? I had this dream that I didn't want these chickens to get eaten by this weird creature. And then my cousin randomly sends me an article about the Rougarou. I just thought it was a weird coincidence, and I had to share with somebody. So you guys are lucky, and I get to share with you. So, there's that. I know it's odd, but I was like, I can't stop thinking about that dream and the fact that I got the article of the Rougarou right after I woke up. Just strange, I wanted to kind of do a recap on, I know a couple episodes ago, I talked about some true crime related stuff that I was following. And so I kind of just wanted to give an update on that, which I talked a little bit about David Miscavige, who was finally served with human trafficking lawsuit. And as of March 7th, this past Tuesday, it has now been 21 days. And he's supposed to respond about the lawsuit. I can't find shit online though, guys. Can't find anything online about him talking or responding about the lawsuit at all. So there's really no update there. Another thing I was like paying close attention to is the Lori Vallow case. Of course, we still got to wait till April for the murder charge for the trial to go through, is until April 3rd. But her attorney did put in a dismissal for the death penalty. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I really don't have a stance on the death penalty at this moment. Something I don't really want to get into. But she is fit to stand trial. Like, she was fit last year to stand trial. So if the jury or whatever goes on has death penalty on the table, she could be up for that. Something that I've really been wanting to figure out is that whole Madeleine McCann thing with Julia Wendell, how Julia is claiming that she's Madeleine McCann. And I still have no idea what's going on there. I did a little bit of research today. I can't find that the DNA test was actually taken. I can't find where this Julia Wendell person is. The only thing that I kept finding was still her family saying, Julia's not Madeline, all that good stuff. They're worried about her mental health. So I'll keep giving you guys updates on those because those are kind of the things that I've been following. I hope you have enjoyed this journey through the FAE Folk series with me. I have had a lot of fun finding Fae from around the world. I got to learn more about other cultures and about how they saw fairies and the Fae world. I really want to acknowledge something though, that most of the Fae culture or most of the Fae lore, at least what I've been introduced to, is usually Christianized, at least on like my side of the world. Most of what we know in the Western world about Fae folk is Irish, Scottish, English folklore, Celtic folklore, and the Fae folk, which are very important to Celtic culture and history. Of course, Christianity played a huge role on how Celtics and Faes were viewed to the rest of the world. So everything has had a Christian influence on it. So I really tried to stay away from that doing this research, and I hope you guys could see that. Doing this Fae Folk series, I was able to learn a lot about different cultures and about how they see the Fae. And not only was I able to broaden my knowledge about the Fae world, but I got to find out that in a lot of Irish and Scottish mythology, way before Christianity, the Fae were actually seen as deities. This is something that never even crossed my mind, but in the same sentence makes total sense to me. So for today's episode, we are going to need an open mind and some imagination. And I want you guys to picture the fairy realm or the fairy world as like a different plane of existence, a spiritual and otherworldly realm. It is physical, but not physical at the same time. And no, we as humans cannot just appear there. But there are certain spots on Earth where the veil is a bit thinner, and that is where we would see the Fae folk. Or if they, of course, wanted us to see them. Or if the Fae wanted to take us to their world, of course. Depends if they want us to see them. Depends if they want to introduce us to their world. And it's not often that humans just stumble into it, at least not by accident. I'm going to be giving you a lot of do's and don'ts in this episode, and this will help if you would like to possibly find the Fae, or if you think you've been in contact with the Fae. And hell no, I'm not telling you how to 100% attract the Fae. There are others who can give you insight on how to attract the Fae into your life. I'm just here to give a little bit of background and some good ground rules to just not piss them off. So there's my disclaimer. So take some notes, friends. I'm going to start off with two really big codes, and these codes are extremely important to the Fae. Number one is being no lies. Don't lie, don't deceive. The other is just be good. I have a quote here from a book that said that the Fae are strict lovers and reverers of truth. And I'm going to start off by this little tale of, why you should probably be, or you should be, 100% upfront and truthful with the Fae. This is the story of a boy named Eladri. Eladri's mother wanted him to steal some gold from the Fae. And Eladri was actually friends with the Fairy King's son and used to play with him often. And on this one afternoon, Eladri decided to steal a gold ball. And as he was walking away from the Fairy King's son and walking back to his own, home, the other fairies realized that he had this gold ball, realized that he stole it. So the other fairies started to run after him and chase him. Eladri finally gave the gold ball back, but when he did, the Fae started to spit at him. And for his greediness and from stealing from the king's son, Eladri was never able to hang out with the Fae folk again. He went to all the places that he knew he would usually find them. They would never grant him any sort of presents after stealing that ball from the Fae King's son. Other things to be noted is that the Fae take words very seriously. Words in the Fae world have magic behind them, so you got to choose your words precisely. You also need to watch the tone you're using. Words have so much magic power that the Fae will not even tell you their real name, because it could be used against them. The Fae can be curious about humans and take an interest in you, but you got to remember that they don't really care for you. They're just kind of like curious, They're kind of selfish. Something that I ran across was that during Christmas time, I read that if you don't want a fairy coming into your home by accident, when you're going to go cut a tree, to take a hagstone with you. Make sure to look through the hagstone before you cut your tree down to make sure there's no fairies lingering in there. You could accidentally take one home, or it could accidentally get in your car, and who knows how the hell that'll go. If you don't have a hagstone, I don't know where you can find one except for at the beach. I have one, and no, you cannot have it. It is the only one I have, and I believe I found it in Fort Bragg here in California, so on the beach. So let's talk about some fairy rings, yeah? We should all know that usually the fairy rings are just a ring of mushrooms, and I see them all the time. But apparently, if you enter a fairy ring, you might start to dance with the fae until they go crazy or die. That goes for you too. You could go crazy or die when you're dancing in the fairy ring. News to me, it's not recommended to be inside of one. If you chill next to one and just kind of hang out, you do have a higher chance of seeing the FAE folk. And this is also a way to just kind of like build connection by just like having your presence next to them and chilling, enjoying nature next to the fairy rings. Keep in mind that not all fae want to be seen by humans. If you happen to see a fae or notice that there could be some fae folk in your house or your garden or your farm, here's a couple things you could plant or a couple things that you could do as like an offering or things that you can attract. So things that will attract the fae to stay close to you. You can grow some hawthorn bushes. I read a lot of places about hawthorn. You can also make your own fairy altar. Make sure it is very clean and organized. You can also just, plainly respect nature. Slow down and observe nature and have fun in it. The fae will notice that you're just loving it, and they're going to be like, I like nature too. And then they'll come around more. Be down to earth. If you would like to attract the fae to your home, your garden, or your farm, or just basically into your life, here's a couple do's and don'ts. But remember to proceed at your own risk. Go ahead and plant some flowers and trees, hawthorn and lavender. Make sure to always pick up your trash, or even other people's trash if you're out in nature. When you offer gifts, build a shrine or a fairy house. The fairies are attracted to crystals and shiny things. Herbal tea is always good to put as an offering, moon water, loose and natural incense, some baked goods, honey, dark alcohol, hag stones, pretty much anything shiny, but you gotta remember you don't want to use like glitter. Glitter is bad for the environment and it's not natural. Seashells, pebbles, those are shiny. Fae like those. They also like tobacco, and something that we have seen on pretty much any encounter with the fae is they like sweet milk. Couple of don'ts to do. Don't add chocolate or unnatural sweets and candies to the altars and fairy homes. A lot of animals might come by your altars or fairy homes, and that's okay with the fae. It's one reason why they say don't leave any chocolate or unnatural sweets around, because it could be bad for dogs and other animals. That in turn can make the fae mad and upset, considering you put the animal at risk. No iron. This goes back to the whole Christianity thing. Flat out, just no iron. They don't like it. I'm going to mention no glitter again because it's bad for the environment. Don't cut the flowers. If you're going to leave flowers as an offering, they like them to pretty much be where they are. But if you do decide to get flowers, make sure to pick the flowers. Don't cut them. Try to take like pretty much the whole root and all kind of thing. And don't put them in vases. Just kind of leave them on the altar or around the altar, because the fairies don't need vases. Remember not to use any sort of plastics, anything. No plastics. And just for note, I had to actually Google this because I wasn't 100% sure. But there is iron and salt, so I wouldn't leave any salt for the fae. Now, if you are in contact with the fae And let's say you've established a pretty good relationship with them. Some things to keep in mind are they do not like empty words. Empty words to the Fae are like please and thank you, you're welcome. Really, any apologies, they don't care for either. Flat out, no apologies. The Fae see us humans use these words so often that to the Fae, they have absolutely no meaning. If you happen to see or have encounters with the Fae, don't go off bragging and boasting about it. That's a sign of disrespect to the Fae. Never, and I mean never, try to force the Fae to tell you their name. Not only would they not do it, but respect them that they're not going to tell you the names. Their names, their words in Fae are sacred, and to be pushy like that is very disrespectful. If you are on a talking type of communication with the Fae, don't worry, they will have a nickname for themselves for you to, call them by. So that will be taken care of. Now that we've established some do's and don'ts, and pretty much just be good to nature, respect nature and animals, and you might have some good contact with the Fae. So I really wanted to get into the courts. There are 2 courts that the Fae world is divided into, and this is the Seelie and the Unseelie Court. The first time I ever heard these terms was when I was in high school and I was reading this book called Cait. I really wish I could remember the author's name, but it is about fairies in today's modern world, and it was really, really good read. But that was the first time I heard of Seelie and Unseelie Courts. And of course, doing this research, I kept coming across them. Seelie and Unseelie Courts. The word Seelie is an old Germanic term for blessed. And in old Scottish folklore, the fairies were divided into 2 classes. The more benign in nature were known as the Seelie Court, and the more malicious were known as the Unseelie Court. Keep in mind that neither court is actually good or evil. They're not going to be all one or the other. It really is a mix of both. It's just the Seelie Court is a little more benign. Unseelie Court, they pretty much have a really short fuse. Both courts are tricksters. The Seelie Court, however, would only play tricks on humans, and they would not play tricks on their fellow Fae. You got to keep that in mind. Neither court likes to be in debt to humans or Fae, and both courts have been known to kidnap humans. So let's talk about the Seelie Court. Seelie Court is more powerful during the summer and spring months. They are the more benign, as I've mentioned, and these are very friendly fairies, and they are also genuinely happy. These are the Fae who like to help humans. Think of the Aziza who gave fire to humans and helped them when they're lost in nature, or the Yunwei Sunzi that would help the Cherokee on the Trail of Tears, and the Nisei when they would help poor farmers by feeding their livestock. Don't be mean to the Seelie Court, or to nature, or to animals, because if one Fae from the Seelie Court just sees you being mean to nature or animals in any way, they will take revenge, and that is when they will play harmful tricks on you. When the Seelie Court takes revenge, that is the only time they do not act so Seelie. But they will warn you if you have offended them or if you offended another Fae. So you know something's coming. You could apologize for whatever you did to offend them. But again, apologies are empty words. So you're just going to have to wait to see what happens. But hey, at least they warned you. The Unseelie Court, however, they are more powerful during the winter and autumn months. They are the more malevolent of Fae, but they are not evil. They tend to have a short fuse and get mad easily. They particularly like to trick humans, and these are tricks that could cause harm. The Fae in the Unseelie Court have been known to take a human by force and then place them somewhere completely unfamiliar and away from home. It's funny to them. These are the Fae that would be blamed for illnesses in people and for bad harvests. I would put red caps in this court. And if you wanted to even broaden your Fae world, I would 100% put sirens and mermaids into the Unseelie Court as well. I did run across a term called a solitary fae. Now, this is like an in-between type of fairy, but they tend to lean towards the unseelie side. So let's talk about some changelings, huh? So I talked in the last episode about how, fairies can take your baby. Well, what are you going to do when one does, and how are you going to get that baby back? I will help you here. So first off, there's no specific description of a changeling, but here's some ways to know if your baby or your child is a changeling, which means that the fae just replaced your baby with a changeling. Don't worry, your baby or your child will be given back if you know that this is a changeling and call it out. Here's some ways to know if, or maybe some signs to know that your baby or your child might be a changeling. That your child or your baby hasn't grown at all. Is your baby or child all of a sudden pissed off all the time? And what I kept reading was mainly, are they all of a sudden ill-tempered? Maybe you noticed a slight difference in your baby's face or body. Maybe the baby likes to just lay in bed and not do anything. Or the baby is all of a sudden not talking the way a baby or your child should be talking. Perhaps they're a little bit more wise than what you remember. Is the baby or child getting sick and just not getting better no matter what you do? Is all the milk going sour in your home? Is the child eating so much food but nothing is changing in weight? Changelings have been known to grow faster than humans when they're healthy fae. Another way to tell that there could be a changeling in your home: everyone in the home is sick or has extremely bad luck. So yeah, there's a whole lot of maybes in there. So, if you got one or all or multiple of those, maybe your baby is sick, maybe the baby's talking too much, maybe the baby's not talking at all of a sudden, maybe it's just pissed off all the time, maybe it's so lazy it ain't doing shit. Could be a changeling. Could be. How do you get your baby back if it's a changeling? You can't take the baby / changeling and put it in a basket or a cradle with a hazel tree branch. Put this basket near or above the fire, and the changeling will scream if it gets too close to the fire, or it'll disappear. If you have the changeling out of the little baby human form after it screams, if it doesn't disappear, you will then need to take the changeling to a crossroad where the other fae will then bring you your baby or child back to you. If you think your child is a changeling and you do need to find out, one of the things was to immediately build a fire and boil water in 2 eggshells. This will make the changeling laugh, therefore ratting itself out, and then you'll get your baby back after that also. There is the story that I read actually way more than once, just kind of different versions of it. But there was a story of this mom who noticed that her baby was just not acting like it used to. And she was told by an old midwife to take 2 eggs, crack the top off of them, and mix the insides of the eggs, whisk them in the eggshells. And to do this right in front of the changeling to see its reaction. And in that story, the changeling just started busting out laughing, saying, "Who eats eggs like that?" So the changeling pretty much called itself out and started laughing, which meant that it couldn't stay there because now the mom knew that it was a changeling and she got her baby back. Ways to keep changelings out of your baby's crib: you can place garlic or bread, not garlic bread, but garlic or bread near it. I don't know why. I couldn't really find any reasons why. That was just something they would do. You could also put steel or iron in the cradle to help guard against them, or you can place a little iron safety pin in the baby's clothes and then they won't be taken. But be careful with that, So I also came across something called a fetch or a stalk. Now, if the fae just wanted to take your baby and they didn't have a changeling fae to replace it with, they would use what is called a fetch or a stalk, which is a piece of wood that would appear as a child, but then grow to be sick and pass away. This way, the Fae does not have to give the baby back to the human. I know, really fucking sad. But who knows exactly why they do this. But I found multiple reasons why, of course. So why would fairies take a human child and replace it with a changeling fae? Maybe it's an old fairy that wants to be taken care of in its old age. So they'll take the old changeling fae, replace it, put it in replace of the baby, and then fortunately, I mean, it is an old age and the human parents don't know much better, but that's one of the main reasons that I could find. So sometimes the changelings are like sick or, are getting older. And that's like one of the main reasons is just they want to be taken care of and they're old and they're unfortunately dying. So that's one of the main reasons why they would have taken the baby. A fairy that just wants to be taken care of, maybe hoping for a better life. Some fae believe that humans and fae should also interbreed. So by placing a fae in replace of the human, that fae can now live and possibly procreate with a human. And the same goes for the kidnapped human baby, that they will live and grow up in the fae world and then procreate with fae women. Apparently, it's hard for the faes to give birth, so they're thinking that having the woman as the human giving birth to the fae is a little easier. I don't know. That seemed real scientific, and I didn't want to get into that. There was also an article I read that that they just want to make the child happy, like the human child. The fae feel bad for whatever type of environment that child is growing up in, so they'll just take the human and then replace, it with the changeling for that human parent. Yeah, I don't know. Many odd reasons. The main children who are at risk are unbaptized children, fair-haired children, and beautiful children. So pretty much, if you think your baby or your child is a changeling, do something odd with food to make it laugh or like question you, because it will call itself out and possibly laugh. And part of the rules with the fae is that as soon as you know that that's a changeling, now they have to give the baby back and the baby will be unharmed. I read that the fae are cat people. I read in some cases that even cats are actually believed to be fairies in disguise, that they are here to watch mankind. And maybe the fae can even change into cats. Think of the Bakanyeko. I discussed the Bakanyeko in a cryptids episode. I believe it's episode 41. And that's how a cat, this is in Japanese folklore, that a cat can impersonate a human. And it's just a way for them to control their human masters. But I read in like Irish and Scottish folklore of a cat Seelie, which are cat fairies. These are like fairy cats, pretty much. Those people who are kind to cats would be given gifts from the fae. Probably any animal that the fae sees human being kind to, they'll give us some sort of gift or offering. Also, the cat Seelie can walk on two legs, which the Bakanyeko can also do. I also read that the cat Seelie are black cats with a white spot on his chest, which I'm like, that's my cat. Louis is a black and white cat. And from, if anybody knows anything about familiars, that could be a fairy, which I have called Louis my familiar his entire life. So that's just a weird freaking coincidence. But I mean, we all love our cats, right? I also wanted to touch points on Faery Mounds. So Faery Mounds, I'll have to post some pictures of them. I can't really do a good description of them, unfortunately. But they're also known as fairy forts. These are usually like stone or dirt circles. Sometimes they will have like a little wooden building or a little wooden home or shack on top of the mound. These were built by the fae and have magic around the mounds. They may be hidden gold in the mound, or this is another way to get into the fairy world. You might be cursed if you alter or change or destroy the fairy mounds. So protect them. Like I said, gotta respect nature. So, you know how I mentioned earlier how the Seelie court will only play tricks on humans, not their own kind? Well, there's actually a fairy prison for fairies who play tricks on fellow fae, and it is in the Dell of Ethi in the Scottish Highlands. And it is in this giant cliff that all these prisoned fae are during the day. They are allowed at night, but they're not permitted to like dance or have fun. The only thing they're allowed to do is grind grain. And if a human happens to happen upon a fairy out on that night and out of prison, they will more than likely be abducted and never seen again. These are very unhappy fae. Couple of times during the year where you can increase your, increase your chances to see the fae are when the veil is thinner. I'm going to talk about 2 holidays real quick. Both of these holidays are Gaelic holidays. They both have really big feasts during them, and bonfires are huge during these holidays. And bonfires are known for cleansing. And bonfires are one of my favorite things to do. We'll talk about Beltane. Beltane is May Day, which is May 1st. It is between the spring and summer solstice. People would decorate their doors and windows and sometimes even their animals with yellow flowers or with holly. People would also leave food and drink out for the O'Shea. And of course, there's also Samhain, which is November 1st and pretty much goes all the way, like, what is it, October, November? Yeah, October to November. Like, yeah, it's between autumn and winter, okay, guys? Between the autumn and winter solstices. These are ancient, like, mounds around the world, and during Samhain you would be able to see the door to the supernatural world in these mounds. And this is also a time when the O'Shea could easily come to and from the Fae world and the human world. I also found out, guys, June 24th is National Fairy Day, so mark your calendars. Now we got to remember that not all Fae trust humans. And not all interaction with the Fae will be physical manifestations. Sometimes it can be symbolism. Maybe you're seeing more animals, bugs, maybe even little things around your houses have been moved. Maybe you've been noticing a number lately. Numerology could play something into it. Maybe you swear you're hearing singing somewhere and it's beautiful singing. Maybe all of a sudden you're smelling flowers inside your house, and if you're like me, there's no flowers blooming right now. New plants are popping up in your garden or your yard. Or maybe you're even dreaming of the Fae. But most of all, you really just got to enjoy and respect nature. You will 100% up your chances of seeing the Fae folk. I really hope you guys have enjoyed that. I have had so much fun with the Fae. Again, we got to talk about the Aziza, the O'Shea, the Apsaras, the Sunzi, the Twilight Teg, and the Nisei. I also got to talk about the courts, fairy cats, fairy mounds. Guys, there's so much going on in the Fae world that I just didn't know about, and I can't thank you enough for joining me on this path through the Fae world. The next episode I'm going to do is on a cryptid, so look out for the cryptid episode, and then I'll get into the other series that I want to cover. But please, don't forget, most of all, guys, go to all my social media. Weird Mythic Podcast on Twitter, Weird Mythic Podcast on Instagram, which also has the link tree to all of our websites and our merch store. I also got all of our videos and audio up on YouTube for Weird Mythic Podcast. And please send me your own story, your own encounter, or even how you felt about the Fae series. Maybe there's something I missed or something I didn't touch on. Maybe I have something wrong. Maybe I need to be corrected and enlightened. Hit me up on weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.